Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled A Break in the Clouds with Penny Kelly. You can find her work at Penny Kelly here on YouTube and also at pennykelly.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to her new newsletter. Penny, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be here.
Well, I hear it was your birthday, so a big happy birthday to you, Penny. May the gods favor you here in 2022 and today, or the last couple of days here as your birthday and your son returns. So, man, my heart goes out to you. I really wish you all of the best for your birthday, Penny. Happy birthday. Bonne fête en français.
Bonne fête, huh?
Bonne
Okay.
fête.
Okay. Okay.
So, folks, join me in saying a happy birthday to Penny, of course, and thank you so much for being on. We haven't seen you since. Wait, did we see you in January? No, the last time was in December. Also, right?
Yeah.
So, Happy New Year, also, Penny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, a better year than last year. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right.
It
Thank you so much, everyone.
Interesting.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone, tonight for joining us on this live interactive show. I'll be bringing your comments and questions on the board as we see fit here during the show. So big thank you for everyone supporting. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And also sign up for Penny's newsletter at pennykelly.com. Penny, a lot of the audience members have been emailing me for the last couple of weeks. Hey, we need to chime in from Penny here. What's the latest look-see? What's going on? Let's get her point of view. So before I do that, let's make them wait a little bit. Okay. I wanted to have your take on this Trump Arizona rally. There's a few people out there doing the rounds right now with specific decodes as to was it him, was it not him in disguise? Why wasn't he wearing a tie? Why the change of music? There's a lot of weird coded stuff happening around there. So I thought, hey, let's ask Penny what she thinks was going on at this particular rally. Let's start there.
I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but I talked to someone who was there, and they said there were hardly any people there. And I was blown away by that.
Wow.
They said the camera had grouped all the people right behind Trump. It was 73 degrees, and he had on a heavy overcoat and a hat pulled down so you could hardly see who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the speculation is that the prostate cancer is back and it's doing bad things, and that it wasn't him. That was the conclusion of, and I was like, wow. I said, well, how many people were there? 20,000, 10,000? And the answer was a few hundred. And
really?
I was like,
wow. Like, that's not the Arizona campaigns we saw during the last election where you had 50 or 60 or 70,000 people. That was absolutely crazy. Wow.
I know something is either very wrong with that whole thing, or we were being conned with all the stories from the past about how many people were there. But
well, let's get to he wasn't there. So there's a few decoders out there who kind of all alluded to, I don't think it was him. It's one of his trained doubles. Apparently has been working with him for a long time. And a few people were saying that perhaps something last minute happened. He had planned to be there, but something last minute happened, kind of a surprise here, maybe in these last days of the war, which meant there was a security issue or whatnot. So we don't know. So again, fog of war for everyone here. But it seems to be a consensus that it perhaps wasn't him. And there's a few people who said also with the live feed, it didn't seem like his lips were at the same time as the camera. So there was something weird happening there. So that's
okay.
Wow. Now, on top of that, you brought the cancer stuff. I didn't hear that one. I've heard you mention that before and a few other people before, but in the last couple of days, no. What's your gut feeling on that? Does that come into your look-sees as well? Like,
no, because I haven't really looked hard at him. But I can't remember when it was last year,
right?
And I don't know if it was June or July or somewhere in there. There was some kind of a meeting, a rally, or whatever. He came out on stage. The instant he walked out onto that stage, my gut was like, something's wrong with him. and that stayed during the entire time he was speaking. Um, there was something so awful about that moment, and I thought, what am I picking up? What am I tuning into? And I ended up coming to the conclusion that either he was on some kind of medication or drug, that he wasn't quite present, um, or he was on some kind of painkiller that he could barely move, and he was being propped up drastically. And I watched that whole thing and thought, oh my gosh, that is what is wrong with him. And it was, for me, one of the confirmations that something is really wrong with, maybe not with Trump, but maybe in Trump, or that whole thing about he's coming back. I hadn't been able to see it. And when I saw him walk across that stage, and he walked like he was walking on eggshells, and he didn't move very much.
What
And
date
I
was this
thought,
one? Which one are you
this
talking
was,
about?
he was on a stage, and there was some sort of meeting or gathering. And I remember talking about with Daphne and saying something was wrong. He walked out on that stage, and I felt like somebody hit me in the guts. Like, what's wrong with him? And that has stayed with me. And one of the things I have, not only have I noticed, but some of my own people that, correspond, etc., have said, he just keeps repeating the same lines over and over and over. And that's, I follow him on his, what is it, Telegram, I think it is. He's the only person that I really follow. And I'm not really following him because I really believe in him. I want to hear what he has to say and what might be changing. And what I have noticed is that he does repeat the same things over and over. Not one bit of it is conciliatory. Not one bit of it leads people to fall in love with one another or be patient with one another. He's stirring the pot all the time. And a couple times I've read what he had to say. Sometimes it's just a word or two. Sometimes it's paragraphs. And sometimes I think, Trump, shut up. You're not saying anything helpful. You're not bringing people together. You're continuing to divide us. What are you thinking? And so I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but something's not right.
I didn't see the live presentation in Arizona, and I'm just pulling up. This is Fox News, so they're more conservative than liberal. And I'm seeing the setup here. It's not a huge setup compared to some of the past rallies in Arizona. I see that here that it's made to be a little bit smaller. Now, it's not to say that when the crowd was there that they weren't a few miles deep. I don't know. I didn't actually see that, but it does appear to be a small setup compared to what he's used to. So I can say that here. A few people in the chat are saying, hey, there's at least 100 truthers. So they're surprised that there wasn't enough more people than that too. So I don't know. And again, with all of these things on TV, we don't know. Between the green screen technology, whether it's Trump or somebody else. And again, was he there? Was there a security risk? Was he whisked away at the last minute? And that's why I was asking you the last time you saw Trump and you thought it was off. Was it maybe a double who wasn't playing the part right, that didn't look quite right? Did that come across?
I considered that.
Yeah.
I considered that. But even if it's, given what I saw in the look-see, there's this general understanding at a gut level among the deep staters that they have lost. And some of them are, what I saw was these exorbitant sums of money going out to clones that would stand in, and they were going to disappear. And some of them were even going off planet. And I just thought, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I wasn't going to do that now, but let's talk about it then. Kazakhstan. There's something absolutely weird happening in Kazakhstan. We're seeing now the populace is taking over. We're hearing reports that they've occupied the banks now, that they're arresting politicians, nurses, doctors, news anchors. They're all putting them in quarantine, like in stadiums and stuff. And we're not seeing this in any of the mainstream news, of course. But there's something happening there. But the biggest thing that we're seeing in the news is the rebuttal of the fact that the leadership have evacuated Kazakhstan. They're saying, "Oh no, we're still all here." Well, okay.
No,
So where there's
not.
smoke, there's fire. So when you're saying here, yeah, maybe people are evacuating here, I'm curious as to how you bring this Kazakhstan piece and all of that too, because for a lot of people and researchers, Kazakhstan might have actually been the seat of the Illuminati. And we're going to choose our words carefully here moving forward here on the planet. So is it possible that that ties in also to everything that's happening now with the banking system, and perhaps also this change in narrative that we see starting already here on this whole health situation around the planet? Let's get into that.
Okay, so I'll share a couple things that I have been asking myself and watching. One of the things is, why did the entire government just shut down, just quit, just leave?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is that about? Was it fake to begin with? Held up by the deep state, and they are doing exactly what the rest of the deep state is doing, like, bye, I'm out of here. So that's one thing. The second thing is that area is so loaded with natural resources, uranium, all the metals, etc., that there's always been this competition to kind of get in there, get a foothold in there. Another thing that I see is that is a major Bitcoin stronghold, and that disruption. Here's the impression that I've had, is that the deep state is seeing that their plan, if you look at all the pieces of their plan, you know, the whole, let's see, what words can I use here? The flu problem, the shot problem, the jab,
right.
You know, all of that, so that's part of the big scam. Okay. And then the deep state was planning to use the crypto thing. So everybody gets cryptos. Everybody gets on the crypto wagon. Now they have total control over our finances. And I think it was England, New Zealand, Mexico, a couple other places, Japan. There were like 6 places, and I think Kazakhstan was one of them. Woke up a few days ago or a week ago, and it was a month ago. I'm losing track of time. But they woke up, and what they discovered was that if they did not have a vaccine, the announcement was that they would not be able to access their funds in the banks. And so what I see, when you see the whole plan, it's really the perfect scam. You've got this illness that is being promoted, you know, like nobody's business. And then you've got the whole medical thing, which is being shoved down everybody's throat. And then you've got the financial thing, which is really wobbly. And then you've got the announcement, no, you can't access your money if you don't have a shot. Then what you begin to see is, this was the whole picture, to force people into taking the medical system solution for this flu. And then if you didn't go along with it, sorry, we've got your money. And now that they are losing, they're going to try and crash whatever they had set up, so that we can't have the benefit of that. It's like they want to destroy everything before they leave, so that there's absolute and utter chaos everywhere.
It's like the kid in the sandbox. If I can't play with the toys, nobody else can play with the toys.
Exactly.
It's like scorched earth.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And it's a really mean I mean, they're meanies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a terrible insult when I was a kid. You're a meanie. And, you know, now I look at what people call one another and I go, wow, meanie sounds really like, hi, come on, friend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So Kazakhstan, I think, is being deliberately, I'm going to say erased, because there's a lot of information there, and they don't want that information getting out. So.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of censorship, of course, with Kazakhstan. I just did a pay-per-view video on this too. We brought in some more data from alternative sites, and yeah, it's absolutely not what's being reported in the news. In the news, they're telling us that Russia is saying that, oh, it's a coup organized by the West to try to get closer to Russia. No. There's something else bigger than that happening, and you and I know better. But okay, so there's a few people taking offense to the whole Arizona thing. And again, first of all, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Have I seen video? Yes, I have. Have I seen fake video in my life? Yes, I have. Is this one true or not? I don't know. So if you know for sure that the video you were looking at was absolutely true, then good on you. That's your opinion. That's okay. I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. And I think for the most part of us who are awake, we know enough to know that there's nothing certain anymore, especially not what we see on TV. Whether we think it's good or bad, there's manipulation on both sides. So sure. Now, your comments about Trump being divisive struck a chord with a lot of people in the audience. And I have to say, some of my guests also in the last week kind of said, yeah, Trump did a lot of, political rhetoric, and that's the polite way of saying it's divisive. So sure, that's a point of view, and Penny's sharing her point of view. So please, folks, if you don't want to listen, that's okay. There's a little button here. It says leave. And you can go watch Pretty Cats on another channel. But I'm trying to have an adult conversation, and we're trying to piece all of these pieces of the puzzle together to get a better understanding. And being in an echo chamber is not conducive to that. So respectfully, we can disagree, but we can also have a conversation. So Penny, let's get into the look-see per se. What's different, or what was your approach in this particular look-see you just put out? Maybe set that up as a preface, and then let's get into the items of the look-see, and I'll go maybe one by one and ask you some questions as we go along here.
Well, the approach this time was a little more international in scope. I was really looking at what's happening elsewhere. Is everybody going through this? I knew Australia was. I had seen some of the things in France. All the other stuff that I ran into was like, oh wow, there's the same thing everywhere. Whether I was looking in North America, South America, Europe, Asia, etc. So it has a little more flavor of the international. But I think the thing that struck me was after last month's look-see, I was like, oh, wow, we've got it made. We're on the home stretch. It's going to be good. And then when I was looking this time, I was like, oh, crap. This is rougher a lot rougher than I expected. And I really wasn't sure that I even wanted to say some of it, but I had to say what I see, and it just looked like it was pretty rough. And if we don't come together, if we don't start talking with one another about where do we go from here, I think the whole thing is going to collapse. We're not ready. And when your government collapses and your money collapses and your food systems collapse, people fight. And I can see that we're walking right into a war. And if we can head that off by sitting down, coming together, talking about what do we want to create, how do we handle this? And it's not just us in the U.S. It's all of us on the planet. And
well, that's what I like about what you just said there too. We're all in this together, and it's not about blue versus red, black versus white, gay, lesbian, straight. No. Okay, enough of that. That's what the trolls are trying to do to separate this. We're trying to have a discord here because we're all looking for the same thing here. How do we move forward as humans? How do we rebuild the new Earth that we want for us, the organic version of our evolution, as opposed to the satanic AI transhumanist agenda that's been at play for so long. And for some people, that's a triggering conversation, and that's okay. This is a woo-woo show, so get with the program. And guess what? I just hit 5 million views in the last couple of days. There's a lot of people watching the show, and so clearly people want to hear these different points of view. They might not always agree, but it engages them in a different way than when they're sitting down in this echo chamber and they keep hearing the same thing over and over, and they think they have a grasp on reality.
That's right.
The fact is, if you're not looking at all aspects, there's this saying, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's
right?
true.
And that's important to think about here. Okay, so you're seeing the general picture come out, I guess, generally speaking, for the whole planet. Let's start breaking down some of those items in the look-see here for the audience.
Okay. Oh my God, there was so much this time. That was another thing. It was way more than usual. So I want to try and hit the highlights. I'm going to say that tensions all around the planet were high. These are the countries I looked at: China, the US, Canada, Brazil, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, Austria, Poland, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, all the stands, Israel, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Norway, Turkey, falling apart, Pakistan, Taiwan, Korea, Holland, Belgium, Switzerland, Kenya, Qatar, South Africa, and a few other places. All of them, the level of tension, my thought was, my God, everybody's blood pressure must be going through the roof. So we're not in a good place. We're not in a healthy place. I get concerned about that level of stress. And I said this in an interview earlier this week. When you have that level of stress, and that stress continues for a year, 2 years, year and a half is pretty much considered the break point. Stress is a reaction. It's a physiological reaction in the body that brings you into fight or flight. Certain chemicals are released. Digestion shuts down. And when digestion shuts down, that means you're not absorbing what you're putting in. And you can't go more than a year and a half in that kind of stress where you're not absorbing nutrition without triggering your genetic genetic issue, whatever you inherited, your weak point gets triggered, whether that's diabetes or cancer or
acquired immunodeficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you age quickly during periods of stress. We can't afford it, and we're now into 2 years. We're headed into the 3rd year.
Hold on just a second, Penny. I want to address this comment. Elisa, she says, I love your show, JC, but I feel we're no longer allowed to comment. You're allowed to comment as much as you want. You're allowed to disagree as much as you want. All we ask in the chat is that you be respectful when you do so. Okay. So the personal attacks have no room here. But of course, you guys can disagree and agree with some of the
disagree.
No problem. That's the whole point, Elisa. So yes, please do comment. I'm not sure that you are being disrespectful, but for those who are disrespectful, of course, you'll be put on timeout or you'll be warned. And if not, you'll be booted from the show. This is not about, we're trying to work things out and understand each other's points of view. And we might get it right sometimes and we might get it wrong sometimes too. This is the whole point of having these conversations. So because I get it wrong once in a while doesn't mean that I always get it wrong. We're trying to get it right. So that's the whole point. The intent is there. And please do follow along with us. And again, if you don't want to, that's okay. You can leave the channel. It's okay. No problem. All right. Alex M., thank you so much. Nice comment, JC. Okay.
Yeah, and let me add something to that, JC. I'm not really in a popularity contest. That's not really what I care about. I left that whole thing behind when I left high school. That where I'm at is, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm thinking and feeling. That's just where I'm at. And if it turns out to be not correct, I'll be the first one to correct it and say, I was way off on that, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and I understand. And I also understand the high passion. You just explained here that for the last 2 years, we're not absorbing the nutrients. Our bodies are maybe deficient now. And so too is our spiritual body, because they're embodied in our physical body. And that makes us more prone right now to challenges to our vision of reality, because we're all shaken
Right.
up by what's happening now. I totally understand that. But
Yeah.
that doesn't give the right for the personal attack stuff, guys. You can disagree as much as you want.
Yeah.
Go and reflect, come back, take pieces, don't take pieces. That's okay. We're just having a conversation. So, all right.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Pity. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, just say your thing, people, because everybody's opinion counts. Everybody's point of view is
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
So, and if I can stir the pot a little bit and get you to say
Thinking.
something, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in a tough position as humans.
Yeah.
We've had
Yeah.
the shit kicked out of us here for the last 2 years. I see a lot of good things in the sense that the narrative is breaking down. I see a lot of that. I see some strategic retreats in some different governments around the world. I see some going even overboard, like pedal to the metal, like it's do or die for them. So you can tell what energy they're in. But please, let's break down some of the look-see points here, and
Okay.
I'll ask you some questions as we go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, one of the very first things I saw when I went to do the look see was this big word disruption.
Mhm.
And it was in all caps. And I was like, okay, well, so um, I tried to dig in a little deeper, and there were a variety of disruptions. It wasn't just a disruption in one area, it was everything was disrupted. And some of it was personal disruption caused by somebody in the family dying unexpectedly and throwing the whole family off. Um, Hang on one second here. I knocked some stuff over.
Okay.
Um, and some of it was public disruption. Some of it, disruption caused by all the political stuff and the Trump team that didn't go quite right. And then planetary disruptions as well. And it looked like the planetary disruptions were really having to do at a level that I'm going to say has to do with the ceasing or the stopping of what in my language we call terraforming. Part of terraforming is the broadcast of frequencies that either develop or devolve DNA and other things. And so that programming had shifted
Mhm.
and has caused a disruption. And I think that we're going to come face to face with the, hit the wall kind of thing here pretty soon.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
when you're saying that program, you kind of talked about this in July with me on this episode that we put on our pay-per-view here, the human trafficking and the harvesting system here, and some of the people who had made that decision. Can you just recap this quickly for the audience members who haven't seen this episode and how it ties into what you just said now? I think that's important. One. And two, I want you to go back on the disruptions part. I've been getting a lot of emails from women who are saying they're having dreams all of a sudden that they're taking care of other people's children.
Yeah.
Or is
Well,
that because people are dying or
yeah.
quarantine, whatever's going on here? So let's address those two. Let's talk about the system here of extraction and harvesting, and also this disruption
Okay.
thing with the women.
Well, the system of extraction and harvesting is a little bit different for each different race.
Mm-hmm.
Some are doing that as a way of preserving. Some are doing that as a way of saying, this is one of the reasons that human beings are so treasured across the cosmos, because we have this, what my grandma used to call this piss and vinegar, that we just keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
the resilience, most of the people out there that are highly, highly evolved are kind of fragile physically. And
Mm-hmm.
they look at us and they go, oh my God, look at that. They're still going. They've been poisoning themselves in their food for forever. They've been poisoning their water for forever. They've been at war forever. They're not doing this. They're doing that. They're avoiding such and such. Nobody's paying attention to whether their education system is taking them forward or backward. Their medicine is killing them, and they are still going. How is that happening? And so they come here to borrow a little bit of DNA because they want some of that spunk.
This is what you're talking about. Of course, Carrie Cassidy wrote the book,
Oh.
The Rebel Gene. Of course, they're trying to stamp out the rebel gene in all of us, but they're also they want to take it for themselves.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why we have been so allowed to continue doing the crap that we're doing, because they hope we're going to wake up and we're going to survive and we're going to evolve and move into higher frequencies, which will change our consciousness and what we decide and how we act and all that. And so all of that has been, all of the benevolent side of what's happening has been kind of hidden. Of course, all the negative side of what's been happening with ETs is out there everywhere. But in terms of trying to bring a planet to full maturity and the beings on that planet to full maturity, there's a huge effort going on to help us and to get us over the hump, so to speak. And part of that has been an effort to evolve consciousness that will counter the terraforming efforts of the people who were broadcasting frequencies that take you down.
Right.
And so that has ended. That has ended, and that means that we are now kind of on our own. We have our free will.
Sky's the limit, basically, as long as we come together and we decide what we don't want, but more importantly, what we do want to create. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that we have a real chance now to really begin to see what's happening. And we need to talk about all the speculative stuff as well as all the real stuff, as well as all the garbage stuff, because in that process you sort. And that's a stage of human development, is the process of sorting out what's real, what's not real, what's true, what do I like, what do I don't like. That is part of the hero's journey that Hercules and other stories of human development teach. You have to understand, they call it this from that. And if you don't, then you're going to make a bad decision. You're going to make a wrong choice. You're going to make your life, you're going to suffer. And so that journey into the self, into the deep self, is pretty demanding. And so all of that then ties back into what I saw with this disruption caused by people suddenly being not having the terraforming programming, which is negative, which is not helpful. That ending, being turned off, and that really then leaves the good side of us, even if we're still squabbling. There's a lot of good in that squabble, and there are pecking order things that have to be settled in our own mind, not between us and other people, but in our own mind, what's most important. And so that's the disruption that I've been seeing.
Okay. And talk about also, maybe if you heard this too, women having dreams about having to take care of other people's children all of a sudden. It seems to be a recurring theme. A lot of them are reporting that.
Yeah. I don't really want to say. Okay. So when you have a dream that you're taking care of other people's children, typically there's several ways that you need to be aware, or several things you need to be aware of. One is that there may come a time when people give up food so their children can eat, and those people may starve to death. And I've seen some of that coming. And so those children have to be taken care of. And there's a lot of children that are wandering around lost. Nobody's taking care of them. So
Do you
that's
think? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
war
you.
is another thing.
War. Yeah.
If we have a war, which we are walking right into, then there's always a lot of orphans that come out of a war. Children don't go off to fight. Adults do. And so the dream may be saying, get ready.
And a third possibility, do you think it's possible that some of these children who are being rescued, will watch your language, also maybe have professional help, and then after a certain point, they're
Yes.
able to reintegrate, and some people will basically in a type of foster care situation en masse? Is that also possible?
That is possible. I was going to say that. So very good.
Okay.
So we're in tune. And there are, there's at least one or two places that I know of that are setting up to do that kind of work, and they will need help. They will need volunteers. And then the last thing is sometimes when you have a dream of taking care of someone else's children, you have had some of your eggs or sperm borrowed and inserted into other beings that are being raised by other people, and you visit them. So that is a fact. So, I know
Well, yeah,
that
I mean, there's many reports of this hybridization program, and there's a few speakers out there already doing the circuits explaining what's happening at that level. But what would be the change, though? Why would those children not be raised by the ET component, but then thrusted back into human hands? What do you see as maybe the event that would trigger that all of a sudden?
Because the humans that are here are so sickly. They're so weak. They're so unhealthy. I just did a thing that talks about the 5 generations from the soil. When you move away from the soil and you're no longer feeding yourself from the soil, you're eating the Western white man's diet. That is, I'll just read a couple things. The first generation raised on the Western white man's diet, bad teeth, narrow bone structure, the jaw doesn't build out, and you get all these crooked teeth. The nose gets narrow, you have difficulty breathing, you have asthma shows up, colds, flu, chickenpox, measles, which we normally would resist easily. Those become a problem. Tuberculosis starts killing people. Diphtheria, pneumonia, same thing. People have no resistance. And so what you get is the rise of the dental profession. Second generation away from the soil, you start seeing serious effects like blindness.
Folks, give me a 5x5 if you can hear me. It looks like Penny is frozen on the screen, but I'm not sure if the problem is at my end
or
at her end. What is going on here?
Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Should I shut up for a minute? Okay. Well, JC, what happened to you? Okay, I think we lost JC. All right. Okay, well, I will keep going and JC will be back. Okay. So second generation, raised on white sugar, canned foods, jams, jellies, stuff like that. Serious birth defects, blindness, clubfoot, lower IQ, and depression. Crowded teeth get to the point that now teeth are falling out. Let's see, fatigue. Almost everybody needs glasses. The heart begins to have heart trouble. There he is.
So it was me. I thought you were frozen on the screen, but it was me somehow who lost connection.
I kept going. I said, you'll be back.
We have a big snowstorm here. It's been a blizzard for the last 2 days, and we're getting more tonight till tomorrow too. So that could be what's going on. All right, I'm back. Okay. Keep going.
Okay, so heart trouble, arthritis, and cancers. All of those appear when you're 2 generations away from the soil. Third generation, now you begin to have allergies, ADHD, eyesight gets lower, IQ gets lower, animal fertility drops. You start getting cleft palate in children. Thyroids quit working. Weight goes up because there's nothing in the food, and the body keeps calling for nutrition, and so you keep eating, and there's nothing in it. Cancers everywhere. High blood pressure and cesarean section becomes commonplace because the body has narrowed too much. So that's generation 3. Generation 4 is premature infants, learning disabled children. 2-year-olds have cancer. 6-year-olds have arthritis. 8-year-olds have diabetes. 10-year-olds are obese. Allergies kill, and all sorts of difficulties with ear, nose, and throat, and lung problems and asthma. We are now in generation 5, and we're getting to the point where we're not going to be able to have children at all. And that's what those hybrid children are about.
Okay, now I understand where you're going with this. In addition to that, there's perhaps, and there's a lot of study, and I'll choose my words, that some of the products out there going around the planet for the last 2 years have made it also so that the last procreative people cannot procreate. So that's another thing to add to your list there.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that was the disruptions. All right. Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in there. Wow. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So let's see, what else was there? Oh my gosh, it looked like over the next month there's a ton of new information coming out about all the bad stuff that's been happening. And the truthers are like, ho-hum, I've heard all that before. And the people on the other side who are saying, oh, that's all conspiracy theory, are saying, I'm not even listening to that. It's just getting to the point of ridiculous. And nobody's listening to the truth that's coming out. It's like the few people who do listen are kind of frozen in shock. And
yeah, like I said, a lot of people are experiencing fatigue of having to revisit their worldview every single day now, maybe for the last 2 years, because all of this stuff is coming up and they're just grasping to try to hold on. They're like, come on, JC, stop changing.
I know.
Or stop bringing all this new information. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second on that note. Rumpel is asking, hey, how's Richard? Okay, he's back from the hospital. He's back at home. He's doing better. And I believe he's going to be on the show this Friday night with Joe. That is for the Wacky Woo episode. Let me see if I can bring that up on the screen for you guys. But yes, he is doing better. And he said a big thank you to all of you who participated in the Singing Bowl meditation with Joe, and also on the last episode with Janine, where we asked people to send him some well wishes. So yeah, so that's going to be Friday night at 8 o'clock Eastern on January 21st. So thank you for asking that question. A lot of people are still asking, where is Richard? Okay.
Thank you for
where
that.
do we go from here, Penny, after the disruptions? Do you still have more on that point to develop?
I think, yeah, there's a couple other things. I'll just make a couple of comments. Talk of war keeps coming up. War.
Yeah.
But Russia, it's not going to be with Russia. Russia doesn't want war. So I think we can ignore that. I think the thing that really struck me was the banking system. I was like, okay, what's happening in the banking system? And I have my eyes closed and I'm just kind of letting images come, visions. And I saw this dinosaur and it was trotting, along through the landscape. And all of a sudden it stopped. And then it went down on its knees. And then it went down on its belly. And then it keeled over. And then it had some convulsions, and then it died. And I was like,
a few gurgling sounds and a wheezing sound, and then it was gone, right?
Yeah, and got really caught up in it. I thought, oh, and then I realized that's the banking system. So, and it was actually, there was a time thing to it. It came to a stall at the end of January. It dropped to its knees the first half of February. It dropped to its belly the last half of February. It keeled over in March. There were convulsions in April, and it died in May. And I was just really upset.
You haven't seen this yet. I haven't talked to you about this, but this last Cliff High video, it's a gas woo. He goes on to give a timeline here. He's talking about the death of the dollar here. He's explaining to people how they need to educate themselves right now on what is money, because we're all going to be learning here a huge, difficult lesson in short order. And further in this video, he puts out a graph. He's talking about the exponential curve of the inflation, when it's going to hit, and when those central banks here in Western world are going to die by it. And it sounds very much like the outline you just gave there. So the big recommendation there, I think both Penny, Cliff, and myself are on the same page there. You guys need to pay attention to this. And perhaps the idea of looking for external saviors at this point is not your best bet. Yes, there might be some options. There's some good people working behind the scenes. There always are. But are you going to risk everything for yourself, for your family, on external savior myths? Or are you going to take actions now to protect yourself and to educate yourself for the system? That was what that video is all about. Go check it out at Cliff High. It's Cliff_High on BitChute. Do you want to add anything to that in terms of self-actualizing and understanding here the real human economy and how what's going to happen here once the system dies, as it's dying now, but really when we get to see it? We're seeing it in other countries. We're not seeing it on the news, but it's coming here slowly but surely. And then very suddenly it's going to be at your doorstep. What can we tell you?
What I've seen over and over again is that people that are kind of awake are really setting up for that. And a lot of them are planning to try to be of service, to help out. There some people are not trying to be of service except to themselves. They're planting gardens down in the South, already planning, but not quite to the planting stage, but going to plant as soon as they get into February, because they can do that down South. And then what I've seen is that there's just another flood of people coming out of the big cities. And that, I think, is really going to be a situation where if people can get out, they're going to get out, and they're going to leave a lot of stuff behind. And that's just the way that it is. Oh, collapse.
Right there, April, May, somewhere here. And he goes on to draw the graph here of the hyperinflation and why he says that. And he's going to explain a little bit where he believes we are in the hyperinflation phase here. We're just at the bottom of that hockey stick. We're about to go ballistic here. And so he's equating here the central banks with the deep state, and how once that is gone, then it's up to us, the real humans, the organic humans, the people who can actually have a conversation about real things, even though they're difficult. It'll be up to us to build here after that. So he's seeing it as an exciting time, because for the first time in maybe a few thousand years, we have the ability to take the rudder, so to speak, on this ship of evolution for humanity, whereas for the longest time we have not. So, but that means a lot of difficult choices and a lot of difficult conversations go ahead. Now, you've been on the show for, since the beginning of my show. We've put a lot of attention on silver for various reasons, both on spiritual side, but also as a banking or as a backup to this changeover in our economy. Now, we've seen forecasts of high prices of silver, and then we've seen a lot of delays to that. And since then, we've had a lot of other people on the show explaining those delays also, but also explaining that perhaps it already has happened, or the events that would bring those high prices have already happened, but we just haven't seen that yet in physicality because of all the obfuscation and the fog of war that we find ourselves in. What can you tell to the audience there who have taken responsibility, maybe got into some physical gold and silver, and maybe have taken actions for themselves here, as opposed to just waiting on the sidelines for the promises and the promises they keep hearing in the news?
Right. Well, let me share what I saw in the look-see, and then I'll share, some info that I saw today.
Okay.
So I went to look at silver, and I couldn't see anything. Nothing. I saw a bunch of rocks and cliffs, and after a minute, I'm like, okay, is this going to morph into something that means something? Because it looked like the Grand Canyon. Like I was looking at the Grand Canyon, and I'm like, what the heck does this have to do with silver? And then I heard the words too soon, just as there was an explosion. And I wasn't sure what any of that meant. So I just moved on and thought, well, maybe I'll come back later and take a look. But the explosion, what after that happened, I was kind of looking at what's going on with the silver market, and what I saw is that it moved up. And as soon as I saw that, I thought that's gonna go up. That's gonna go whoosh. And that was the explosion, I think. And the too soon was you're looking at it too soon to see the explosion. And then the explosion happened. So I think silver is about to go up. I was looking also at cryptos. They were just so the confusion around cryptos between now and June, what made me cry was just like, oh my God, people trying to get wallets, they're trying to get crypto, they don't know what they're doing, they're sending money.
The panic to own. Yeah, the panic to own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so cryptos really, even though the deep state is maybe going to try and destroy that before they exit stage left, that, remember me saying last time, I think we're going to take that on and we're going to make that our system. And that's going to be the money of the future, which is the digital money I saw with the robes way back when.
Yeah.
Nobody had physical money. Nobody. So.
Well, on that note, you and I haven't spoken since then, but back in December, Reggie Middleton was awarded his patent for DeFi, which is huge news. And this is where I think humans take control of that digital economy, as was prescribed in the robes back in the 80s. So that's a big point for you.
Right.
I want to bring this up, though. Bix Weir of roadtoruta.com has done a lot of studies about the Grand Canyon and the gold. So guys, go check out this video here. So perhaps that's what you were seeing here. At some point, if you look at the Road to Ruta theory, we go back to the Grand Canyon because they found gold there, but they locked it all up. There was a plan here to eventually go back to that. And anyways, you can go and read the Road to Ruta comics from the Federal Reserve to understand a little bit more. And go check out this link here. I'll put that link down in the live chat. So you might have that connection there. Where you said, okay, there's an explosion, and then suddenly it all comes out at the same time. And they're talking about the riches here in the Grand Canyon. Whoa.
Okay. Oh, maybe that was it. Because I was just going to say, yeah, but I was looking at silver, not gold. But maybe the Grand Canyon offers more than just gold.
Exactly, because all of this has been hidden. So we don't know really what's up there. Again, we always talk about the gold when we look at the conspiracy theories, but there might be more there. There's more there in the sense that there's Egyptian artifacts also, and this also will be coming out. So what does that say about our history, which is all lies and deceit and obfuscation? So yes, Jim Montgomery says, love Bix. Yes, absolutely. He has great videos on this. So go check him out at roadtoruta.com. And I'll get him to come back on here too, because there was something else recently. He was fine-tuning some of the research also on the Grand Canyon. So he was picking up something new from there too. I'll have to ask him to come back on the show. I mean, who knows? Perhaps it had something to do with silver also. So, wow. Okay.
Okay. And I'll just add that I've been studying history for quite a while now, a couple of years. And I saw recently a YouTube video. Of course, I didn't write it down, and I don't know who put it out there, but they were talking about Egyptian artifacts found in the Grand Canyon. And I remember thinking, what? Okay. Yeah, maybe. Is that BS or is that real? But I saw they had the artifacts.
They had the artifacts. They have old newspapers, and then they have reports of the Smithsonian going in there, removing all of this stuff. Like, yeah, there's a trail there, Penny, for sure.
Okay.
Something doesn't smell right in the Grand Canyon. And lot of the peaks and mountains there are named after Egyptian pyramids, gods, and all that. So there's a lot to look at.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Is it what we think? Oh, I don't know. And even the remote viewers did something on the Grand Canyon too, and they saw technology a tie to Egypt, perhaps as well. There's the
Yes.
story of the guy who got blind, and I think it was from a technology. It wasn't from gold itself. So there's a lot to that story for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if what I'm learning about history, if even half of it is true, we haven't a clue about who we are, where we came from, or
Exactly.
where we're going.
Yeah. Or where we are.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on the flat Earth
Oh
and
my
the round
God.
ball theory. That's going to be for another show. Ocean Odell says, "Great show, JC and Penny." Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of great information tonight. I love the dynamics. Really, really cool.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I see a comment about Tartaria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's another. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. I just did a show today. We talked about Tartaria and some of the giants that are found everywhere, the giants that were found in North America and Afghanistan. You talked about the stands earlier. Yeah.
You see this?
Mm-hmm.
This is a paper that was sent to me. It's I tried to find, I'm sure it came off of my website or out of my email inbox. I could not find it. I know I got it out of there, but it's quite a few pages. I'm going to say it's probably maybe 100 pages, and it is a mind blower about how history was distorted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
wow. There was recently a declassification of some documents of World War II, and it showed how Tartaria had a seat at a council post-war to decide how they were going to basically rewrite them out of history. So it was like, okay. And again, and they have, of course, of course. But if you go look at these old maps, they're all over the place, and not just around the Russia area, but around the world. They were a global civilization, and so perhaps Penny and you and I can deep dive on this on another show.
I'll tell you what, I'm into it. I'm drowning.
Okay, well, because when we get into that, and we get into also perhaps the mud flood theory, the resetting, the liquefaction of some areas around the planet to destroy areas, like there's a lot there, and some of it is not that far away. People think, oh, that's a few thousand years ago. It could be as close as 150 and 200 years ago that we suffered one of those resets. I talked about this with author and producer Jay Widener. We talked about his book, The Mysteries of the Great Cross of Henday, who talks about this recurring cataclysm on the planet. And right. Yeah. And so fascinating stuff. Maybe I'll get you guys together and we can do a show on that too. That'd be fascinating. Because again, we're at that period of time now. I don't know that it's going to go like in the Great Cross of Henday, because human consciousness is also rising at the same time. Otherwise, but we are at that crossroads, and that's important. And that's why I actually named that episode "The Crossroads for Humanity." By the way, I think it was deleted from my last channel when YouTube didn't like it so much.
Oh well.
Yeah, I wonder why, Penny. I wonder why.
I can't imagine.
No. All right, let's keep going with the look-see. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Okay, so let's see here. 3, 4. I talked about that. Deep staters leaving, hiding, going into space. I don't know where they think they're going to go. Let's see. I think I'll just mention Brazil going through exactly what the U.S. is going through, almost identical. Same timing, same issues, same media, everything. Australia, they're in deep doo-doo. Germany, almost as bad as Australia. Austria, maybe worse than both of those. England was really surprisingly refreshing. It was just they have this way in England of not getting all, what is that saying? That they don't get their panties in a twist kind of thing. And their whole approach was they have so much diversity in England now because of all the people that have settled there, that it's a beautiful mix of ideas and input and thought and what have you. I was like, holy cow, I like that. So, and they're all talking, even though they, kind of butt heads now and then, they're all talking with one another. So, I went to look, this was in March, at the Federal Reserve banks and the Bank of International Settlements. And I had a small vision at that point. And it was, I had this impression that I was looking through a giant walnut shell, like a giant walnut. It had been, destroyed in a war. So a bomb went off and blew a hole in it, and the nut was gone. And I could see this blue sky, beautiful sky in the distance. But the thought that I had, that it was all symbolic, the Fed and the BIS are now nothing but a shell. The nut is both the money and the power that they had, and that nut is gone. The shell is still standing, but there was a war, and the war destroyed them. And that somewhere down the road in the distance, I could see a beautiful sky. And so it was like, okay, I'm not sure how the Fed and the BIS impact my day-to-day, but I'm sure they impact my bank.
Mhm.
And it doesn't look good for them.
And all of the credit system that is involved in taking products from A to B to C to your doorstep. And if the bank and the Fed isn't there with the credit system, that for a period of time will be broken. And we're seeing now governments exacerbating that, just like we are here in Canada with this mandate for the truckers. And we're going to see, I believe, a big convoy and a rally on the 23rd. So they're making it worse for some reason here. And again, this is why we're having these conversations. It's all about seeing what are the possibilities and where these effers want to go, so that we can make a decision to get us to not go there and act together in the direction that we do want to go. That's so important. That's why we're having these conversations, even though sometimes they're hard to have. Keep going.
Yeah. And I think the blue sky, and I remember seeing pink in that blue sky, was like, oh yeah, I mean, it's coming. And we may have to create that new system. So people, those of you who have financial experience, be thinking about what kind of banking system would you make?
Yeah.
And I think we already have it in the blockchain.
Yeah.
But,
well, this is a big thing that Cliffy was saying in this video. If I rewind to the beginning here, he was saying, don't expect the Nasera, Jacera, all of these iterations that were being talked about, mostly by the deep state for the last 20 or 30 years, trying to reinvent themselves. What he's saying here is that humans are going to reinvent and take control of our organic economy, as opposed to the financial system that was the overlay extracting our energy out of it through this financial debt and slavery model that was upon us. So we're going back to this, if we can, and if we're responsible, this human economy organically, in a way that we choose our future. And this is why, like you say, blockchain and us empowering each other and disintermediating, meaning taking away the middle guy who's been screwing us all these years, there's opportunities there. And that's where the mass of the wealth comes in. Because when you looked at that pyramid, I brought it earlier, the Kazakhstan pyramid here. Let me bring that back on the screen. So this supposes that everybody at the bottom is funneling money to the top. Well, that means that also it's inverse. All the wealth is at the top. And if we crack that middleman, it all comes down equally. And then we have resources to really rebuild our economy. But we need to get at it, and we need to say the real things and to go after these guys. And that's what's happening over there. Banks are being, what's the word? People are staying in banks, or seized, or are occupied. Banks are occupied right now. They've been looted. They're taking all the data out of the banks. They're figuring out what was happening there. There's a lot of weird things happening that are not yet reported here in the mainstream news, but it kind of ties into perhaps these people going to Antarctica last month or the month before, trying to make deals, maybe trying to get off planet. Did you factor that in, or do you want to share also on that with the audience, Penny?
About what's going on in Antarctica?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can bring down what I know to a reasonable size. There's so much going on, and has been for 20 years, that it's ridiculous. There are other beings. There are other races of beings down there. There are at least 3, 4, 5 that I know of, and then there's some others I don't know who they are. But they are renegotiating. They want us to acknowledge them, even the ones who have been trying to screw us, want us to acknowledge them, and just move forward. Forget the past, move forward. And I'm not sure that the human being, especially the military mindset human beings, are capable of that level of forgiveness, number one. And then there's a lot of stuff that's been happening behind the scenes that I really don't want to talk about, that is absolutely mind-blowing, in terms of the deep state and the cabal giving up. And there are factions in that deep state. There's the medical faction, there's the educational faction, there's the military faction, there's the financial faction, then there's the governance faction. All of those are deep staters that work together. And I'm not sure that the military faction is even willing to consider giving up at this point. So it's, at this point in time, I'll just leave it saying there's a whole lot going on in our relationship with other beings that are off planet as well as on planet. And it's all happening and a lot of it is happening in Antarctica.
For the audience members who may be have not followed this track of Antarctica for a while here, this was a great update video of all of the anomalies in Antarctica by Brad Olson. You can find that on his BitChute.
Yeah.
Fascinating things out there. And of course, we know in mainstream media that a lot of our weird upper echelon characters have been summoned there very recently. So there is, in fact, something happening there to add a little bit of fire to the story here. So what's interesting to me in that, and what's this was Cliff tweeting that also, is that when we get to that, and we might remove this bug on our back of the financial system, we might get to that history. So right now we're humanity, we're a species with amnesia, and we need to remember where we're coming from and how we've been manipulated and maybe thwarted around our evolutionary tract. And once we understand that, then we will be a much stronger position to decide where we want to go and to empower ourselves. So this information and getting at that is absolutely crucial.
Let me just add to that. Yeah, I don't know who Brad Olson is, but his stuff looks really interesting. The whole idea among the deep state factions is they're all moving in a direction, and they are hoping, how do I say this? If these guys don't make it, then these guys might, and we'll be able to bring the first guys back. So it's looking like the brunt or the heavy work is going to be done by the military and the medical factions. And that's going to, I don't know that they're ready to give up yet, even though Klaus Schwab and Christine Lagarde were told point blank in Antarctica, was it last week or the week before? It's over. It's over. You're done. Go back. Give it up. Stop the game. Turn it off. I'm not sure if they have come back and complied, or if they're just thinking, well, I had a bad dream down there in Antarctica.
Cliff seems to think they're fighting for an extra day. They're fighting for an extra hour. They don't want to die. They don't want to end. And everything they're doing now is just fighting to get, to the next day. That's what these guys are doing. And that's very much what it feels like when you look at the political structure and the Hail Marys that are going on here each and every day. Going back to Brad Olson, he's the author. His latest book is Beyond Esoteric.
Oh, wow.
I should have him on my show. It would go well with BeyondMystic. He's very a prolific writer. Let me bring this link down. This is on BitChute. It's not accredited to him here, but I know it's his video. I think this was from a presentation at Contact in the Desert. So I'm going to bring that link down here in the live chat for you guys. Go check that out. And if you in the audience can find his actual link to his YouTube or BitChute, please share it here with the audience. But absolutely interesting fellow doing a lot of great research there.
Yeah. One of the things I wish that I had included in the look-see, and I didn't, but I will for the next one. I pay attention to what's happening with the South Pole, the magnetic South Pole, and the magnetic North. And there's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last, 10 years. But that North and South Pole are both moving. First of all, they split. So we have 2 North Poles and 2 South Poles, and they're moving. And the conventional wisdom is when that North Pole gets to the 40th parallel, there's a pole flip. And when there's a pole flip, there's a humongous change in weather, climate change. So the climate change boys might be able to be telling the truth after all at some point in the future. But that whole thing with the poles, they're moving now at a pretty good clip. And they are estimating a year and a half before we get to the 40. I think they're, is it some ridiculously small amount to get to the 40th parallel. Wow. And I thought, if that's, maybe the poles wander, but when they wander that far, the South Pole is wandering north and the North Pole is wandering south, then they begin to interact, and you get a set of field lines, and that can rock the planet, tip it, roll it.
There's a bunch of writings on caves about that are thousands of years old. This has happened before on the planet, and there's a lot of recollection of that. And today in mainstream archaeology, those people didn't know what they were talking about, blah blah blah. It was all it was a storyboard and nothing else. Well, maybe, but if you look at the Hopi prophecy, when you get into the blue and red Kachina, it could have this effect of pulling the magnetic center off of the planet. And there are a lot of people seeing weird things in the skies also right now, including these different spheres. But when you look at the rest of the Hopi prophecy, people being disconnected from their soul through what we're doing now, like a lot of it ties into exactly what you were talking about. So if you read carefully, somebody says, "You're right, Gene." Okay, thank you, Simon. Yeah. Appreciate that. There's something there, folks. So again, okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. I love it. There's more there. Oh, man, I keep interrupting you. We'll never get through these.
No, that's okay.
This is a great conversation. I love it. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Was there more on that point? Do you want to jump to the next point? How do you feel?
Yeah, let's move on. I think a couple of things that I want to say. I did see a big disruption, a big snafu in the supply lines. It starts like maybe in a month or so, March, thereabouts. It looked like a big snafu in the supply lines all through the Western world. A lot of food, clothing, hardware, and everyday stuff. Really, really slow to be delivered. It wasn't non-existent. It just wasn't coming in. And I was reminded of what I saw a month or two ago was people going to the grocery store. Is it here today? Nope. We'll go back the next day. Is it here today? Nope.
We're seeing a lot of empty shelves already. So we're already there. And this is going to make it worse. What just happened here, at least for Canada, is going to make it worse. That's for sure. And you're going to hear it in the news. And they're going to say that these guys behind the wheel are the bad people, when in fact they're fighting for your very right. Because everything that gets to your door, most of it came by truck at some point to get to your local store. So yeah, we're going to see more of that for sure.
Yeah. Plant your gardens, people.
Yes.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
So, and keep in mind, it takes 2 months for that garden to produce.
Yeah, exactly. So, my friend Ken Schwartz from C60 Purple Power, he says, for you, JC, it starts tomorrow. Yes, I know. I think the strike starts tomorrow here in Canada. I think it started today, actually. We might have seen some of those convoys today, but I think the big one also, it might be on the 23rd, but we're already seeing some of these disruptions now. Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Okay. Well, get ready, people, because have what you need. Hello, Ken. I've been going to respond to your email for a long time, and I just have been too tied up in so many things.
I'm the same way. I'm so behind in all my emails, Patty. I'm so behind. It's just like
I know.
I look at it, I'm like, oh my god. I try to tackle a little bit, and then I was like, nope, I can't.
Yeah. There's comes a point where you say to yourself, turn the computer off and go to bed.
Yeah, and go plant your garden.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
All
if
right.
try to, I think a little thing I would say to just to close that piece out. If you know people in your area that make clothing or that make, moccasins or any form of shoes or that make special kinds of breads or that do repair, small engine or machine repair, get to know those people. They're going to be very valuable as we move through this whole thing. So, and if we don't come together, if we keep on pounding on one another and saying you don't know what you're talking about instead of listening to one another, then when we get into war, it's going to get worse. And the war, if we have a war, it looks like it's going to start right after the 2024 election, because the 2022 election is corrupt and the 2024 people are like, we're done with this. And there's a looks like a global civil war. Martin Armstrong has been saying same thing. I didn't call it a civil war, global civil war. It just looked like a war of the people everywhere around the planet trying to get rid of their government because the governments were so corrupt, so evil. And it was like, can we call that a civil war? It looked very uncivil, first of all. And there was no joking around. It's like, no, we're not having you. So government in the US kind of degenerated to about the status of a very small nonprofit organization trying to stay alive with absolutely no power and no money.
And just so you know, for people who don't know the Armstrong economics, he was also predicting this die-off as early as last September. He was talking about the die-off here that's happening now in the spring. And if you go look at the actuaries report, there's a big variation right now in people dying and leaving. And not because of the thing going on right now, other complications because of the product. So anyways, there's a lot there. We can't get into that in this show.
I know.
But we're seeing a lot of people disappear now, absolutely. And it's causing a big problem also in the supply chain management system. So again, just more reasons for people to have these conversations and to empower themselves. That's the whole point of all of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, last week I had 3 days in a row where somebody that I knew very well and was close to just left, just died. It was like, I was like, oh no, not another one. So now I have 6 or 7 on my list of people that were really key people in my life, and they're gone. And most of them are young. So there's 2 older ones and the rest are young.
Well, that last report that I saw, I'm trying to bring it up here. I didn't expect to talk about this tonight, but it was like from the 15 to 55-year-old category was like skyrocket high. I'm like, why are these people dying? What the hell is happening all of a sudden? And of course, we're seeing the sudden deaths. We're seeing the heart attacks on the soccer fields and all of that stuff. This is not normal, folks. No. And if you think that doesn't change your social order, you really need to rethink that, because those people dying are the people that pick up your garbage, or people who are doing the IT at the bank. They're the people who are doing, like, you know what I mean? You can't replace all of these people the next day. And we're seeing that right now. Everybody's operating at 20, 30, 40% capacity. And stores were saying, okay, we're hiring, but as in now, right now, today, yesterday, because we don't have any staff. So it's just going to continue like this for a while.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a couple more things that I think I would mention. We're entering a long period here. This is the last thing in the look-see. We're entering a long period of being really busy with life, just trying to survive. It starts this spring and it just keeps on going for probably, I'm going to say 15 years. That's a long time. And so, people are too busy trying to survive to think much about what's happening over there in that part of the world. So the baby boomers aren't really doing much. They're not standing up because they're getting old and they're falling apart. That's just where they're at. Generation X, which is my children, our Generation X,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones running the world now because all the baby boomers have retired.
Yeah.
And they're too busy dealing with the jobs and, running things to be bothered with what's going on. And so the problems, if we don't resolve the problems, it's the generation that would be my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren that are, my grandchildren now are in their 30s. And my great-grandchildren are 5 and 6 and 7 and 14 even. So their anger is so intense because of what has happened in the world that they just kind of sweep away everything.
Mm.
It's like they take all their knowledge. Let's see, what did I write here? They take their anger and they change everything about the world using their understanding of technology, the lessons they learned about health because of the flu thing, the information emerging about our true history, their experience of being locked up, and the presence of extraterrestrials, and they take all of that and they stir it into a big pot and they just wipe out the civilization that all the people are trying to return to normal to experience. It's going to be gone. And if you're not flexible, and if you think that this is the only way you could be comfortable living, you're probably not going to make it. So.
Okay. That's it.
Happy note?
Nope, there's more.
Okay.
Penny, you're killing me, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have we're not really addressing the things that need to be addressed in the couple generations behind us, those in their 30s now.
Mm-hmm.
My grandchildren are 35.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then their children are 14 and 15. That's really, they're building up an anger that says, we're done with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so normal, I think, is over.
Mm-hmm.
We need to adjust. We need to expand. We definitely need more energy, less fatigue, more health, more resilience. We need to start listening. We need to start talking to one another. Mm-hmm. And that's imperative.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things here. There's a person saying, hey, Mr. T is coming back, so hold on. So I'm like, okay, let's just play it through, Unique. Okay. Let's play it through. And this other person here, Becky, says, I'm sorry, JC, but she's so far off the truth. She doesn't understand what he's doing. Okay, let's play that true. So
okay.
He's coming back, Penny. He's back next month. So I asked the people in the audience, and let's say that's true, and let's say he has good intentions even, okay?
Yeah.
And let's say he's got a whole team working behind him, and the White Hats are all behind him. Some ETs also are behind him. How much time does it take to fix the supply chain? Is it because he's back that suddenly the shelves are full?
No.
Exactly.
No, it would take probably 4 to 6 months to fix the supply chain.
Right. And then it would take maybe 10 years to bring back infrastructure of manufacturing back here to North America in full force. You see what I mean? So yes, let's play it true. The people in the chat here are saying, hey, don't worry, he's coming back. Okay, let's play it true. Let's say you're absolutely right, he's coming back. It doesn't fix the problems that are already broken right now in the system. And this is why we're having this conversation, because if you don't understand that, you are going to have it much more difficult for you moving forward. Because again, like Penny says, there's no normal. We're not going back to normal. We're going forward to something completely new. And whether or not that transition is easy, easier, or hard is up to whether or not you see the reality. And whether these people, these good people, these ETs, everybody who wants love and light are here to help us actually are there and do that, it still doesn't fix all those problems right away. Now, some people in the chat will say, oh, JC, there's free energy. Okay, yes, let's run that true. Yes, there is technology. How long does it take to implement that? Like Penny just said, if you plant your garden here, you're not going to have yield in for another 2 months. right?
That's right.
So that's the same thing with everything. If the economy is down and the credit system is down, we have to build something new. It takes time for that trucker to find the part to put in the truck and then to buy the gasoline and then go to the farm. And there's a lag time here. And what people do not see right now, a lot of us in the audience here see that. There are things right now that are so broken, even though they're obfuscated by government and we're being told that everything's okay. These things are really, really broken. They're 2 years into the breaking part, and it's going to take much more than a man on his white horse coming over to save us. And even if he does come, there's a lot to fix here, and there's a lot of very, very hard conversations and adult behavior that needs to happen. And you said 10 years earlier when you said something. Cliff, I was saying 18, maybe 10 if we're adult about it, in terms of bringing everything back under our control into a new system where we're not basically fighting for survival to create everything or to fix everything that's been broken. So if we're adults about it, maybe 10 years was his take on that.
True. Yeah, I think that's really true. The energy system, you can't change the energy system even within 5 years because the infrastructure has to be built. That, you know, what sort of energy system are you going to put in? There are other forms of energy out there, but the infrastructure is not there.
Well, people would say to that if we ran it through, oh, well, there's free energy devices, JC. There's little boxes the size of a generator you can put in our home. Okay, well, who's building that right now? We don't even have the microchips capability anymore. We're trying to get that. And this is the whole point with Taiwan right now, right? So, guys, you have to play this through here. If we're going to build these little generators for how many million homes in North America, we need some place to build them, and really, really quick. And we need the material, and we need the silver. That's the other thing.
And the other thing you need is to educate the people to build it. They need to be educated, and that all of that. You know, I used to do corporate education, and the biggest thing when you're changing a system in a big corporation, for instance, Ameritech was who I was working with. You have to deal with the resentment of the workmen who say, "I don't want to learn this. I don't want to do it that way." I want to do it the way I know how to do it and the way I'm comfortable.
And that says, hey, I get that, JC, but at least we'll have a leader, right? A strong leader as opposed to what we have now. Well, I'll be the first one to tell you, yes, please. I'd love to have strong leadership. Right now, I don't even know what we have. We have a pretendency is what we have. So, Annette, I absolutely agree with you. It's going to be better if we have some sort of real leadership and also some sort of self-responsible community backing up that leadership or working in tandem with that leadership, as opposed to us giving our power away to somebody else who's going to tell us how to fix everything. I think that's what Penny's saying. That's over. That whole nanny state system of, oh, we're just going to expect one guy over there to fix it all is not going to happen. So that means that we have to fix things.
Yeah, I think that's really an important point. I love good leaders. I don't know that that we would be good to a good leader, or even a collection of good leaders, because there's so much anger, and that's the polarization around the world is astounding, and people are not going to be trusting. We've grown up. We've gotten more savvy, media savvy, politically savvy. Financially savvy as a result of all the stuff that's happened in the last few years. So
Jane says humans are amazing. We shall overcome. I completely agree with that.
I agree.
And what we need for that, and I'll echo what Penny just said too, we need many leaders. We need a multipolar leadership system. We need a distributed finance, like Reggie Middleton's dream of DeFi. We need that in our economic system. We need that in our political and education and healthcare systems. Yes. But that all involves us as the leadership, not the white guy on the horse. The orange man on the horse. I'm trying to translate from French, but the white horseman, I forget what it's called. You understand what I mean? The Shining, the Shining Knight on the white horse. You guys know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I think one other thing that really bears mentioning that I started out going to do this 4-part piece back in September. And it has evolved now. It's becoming a whole book. And one of the pieces of that is devolution. And there's a lot of people that are hanging on to devolution, saying, this is the reason why all this is happening, and da da da. And I have read all the devolution stuff. I have studied it. I have thought about it. I've talked about it with some of my higher ups that are very involved in the military. And there's two ways that you could take that devolution. And one of those ways is that, Trump has saved our nation, and he has taken power away from the government and saved it somewhere else, which is what devolution is. It distributes that power out to specific places. And I won't go into the structure of devolution, but the thesis is that when your country is under attack, then you devolve the power out to other places. And then when you have won against the enemy, you bring it all back. However, the other way to look at it, given what I know about Trump, is that I probably shouldn't prejudice it by saying that.
Right. No, I appreciate what you're saying here too, and I think it's good that you say that for the audience. But what you're saying is maybe devolution is the attack right now.
Well, not only that, if you look at it from a different point of view, devolution was a deliberate effort to break down the country and to move it into regions that will establish themselves after we get rid of the old system. And it's looking more like that is what is going to be the result than bringing the old system back and making it run.
Well, to me, that's a good thing, because we go back to giving power to the local level ground up, as opposed to the federal model, dictating everything for everybody else.
I know.
But at any rate,
how do you tell all those people that are hanging their hat and their hopes on devolution, and it's all coming back and it's going to be restored? That's a big disappointment for them. And if Trump, who is looking, when you know the underside of what Trump is doing, it's kind of hard to say he's innocent. He's a participant in a war. And I think one of his great things is that he has managed to convey to people that he cares. However, he's still fighting against an opponent, and at which point he's at some point got to say, I can't worry about what's going on with those people. I have to win this. And that's where it all comes apart.
Well, two things you just said there. You said he's a participant in a war. Here's what a lot of people don't understand. We are all participant in this war.
Yes, we are.
And for a lot of us, maybe again, not watching your show or my show, people don't know they're at war yet. And so they're taking actions as if they're not at war. Once that becomes clear to them, then maybe some of these harder conversations can take place, because now it's a question of self-preservation. Because if I go outside in the morning and I see the black cloud, I'll say, I'll bring an umbrella. It might rain on me. But right now, that black cloud or the war has been obfuscated, and people are walking around without their umbrella, without their defense here, and without thinking forward, hey, where am I going to get my meal tomorrow? Or what am I going to do with my supply chain management? So there's that.
Yeah.
Eminem says, we're ready to govern ourselves. Some of us are. I agree. Some of us are. But there's still quite a few people. If you look at mainstream news and the people who are still in that emotional bandwidth, they're still very much looking towards the nanny state to give them their monthly check and give them their little section of the news of what they think is reality and all that. So we still need to fight for those people.
I know.
And we need to bring them on our side. And we have to have these, again, tough conversations. And again, we'll find ourselves disagreeing with each other. We'll find ourselves having juxtaposed views. We'll even find ourselves erring sometimes and making mistakes about our vision of reality, because again, there's this observational dilemma that many military officers talk about. We don't know what we're looking at. most of the time. And even when we think we know what we're looking at, because this system is so designed to obfuscate things from us, we still have that issue at hand. So, wow, Penny, what a great show. What a great show. A thought-provoking show. Thank you so much. Is there anything else on your list? Let me go look. Kazakhstan, the look-see, the rally. Oh, ET comms. Let's finish on that. I've also been getting a lot of emails from the audience members who are getting presents indoor bedrooms at night. And they're all saying the same thing. It's not negative. Like they don't feel afraid, but at the same time, they're all trying to understand what the communication is. So can you speak? I know you've been having some contacts with your ETs for many years, maybe accelerating in the last 2 years, but can you speak as to why also this might be occurring to the general population at large, and what the overall maybe advice you can give them on how to have a better recollection of these communications? Let's tackle that a little bit as best we can here.
Okay, I'm not sure I could give advice about having a better recollection of the communication, but when was it 2005 to early 2000s, and the efforts that ETs had made to get the governments to announce themselves, to announce the fact that ETs, hang on a second, were present. That didn't work. Urander, who was one of the people that we communicated with in South America, when he was told, the ET said, we're coming to pick you up. We're going to pick you up September 12th to 15th. So be ready those days. And we're going to keep you for 2 weeks because we want to show you some things that your planet is going to go through. And we want you to tell your people. So they came, they picked him up. He was brought back, I forget how many days later. And we got some messages from them at that time, which was all about the science. But the greater message was, we've done everything that we can to get your governments to announce that we are here and we're here to help you. Then we're here to help you evolve, and the governments they're in the way. So we're going to take ourselves to the people, and they have been slowly introducing themselves in people's bedrooms, which is a little bit invasive. Some people think that that's their private space, but that isn't the way ETs think of bedrooms. And they go to those people that they think will remember that they were there, and will say, what was that about? And at least that's what they want, is for you to ask that question. What was that about? It was about you recognizing that they're here and that they're open to having a relationship. And there are numerous different races of ETs here. And they are trying to get us to calm down. And so they pick people that they think will be able to handle that kind of connection, and they're slowly introducing themselves. So just if you've been visited, if you have an experience in which you wake up and there's somebody in your room, for God's sakes, don't freak out. If you can, just say, well, hello, do you need something? If you can't say that, then don't say anything at all. A lot of times you won't be able to move because they will wake up your consciousness,
but not your body.
Without waking up your body.
Yeah.
And because when you go to sleep, you get paralyzed from the neck down. The body produces a chemical that paralyzes you or reduces your electrical circuitry 90%, just enough to keep the heart going. And that's so that when you dream, you don't get up and do something, physical.
Or you don't kick your wife in the bed while you think you're running in a field.
Right. So the thing that's really, that you really need to understand is that if you're getting visitors, they're trying to make contact, and they're saying with that contact, we think you could handle this.
Okay.
Do you want more?
Mr. Razor in the chat is saying, "Oh, that's kinky in the bedroom." Okay, so it has nothing to do with kink.
No,
It's more you're ready for communication.
no
Okay,
kink.
I love the
Sorry.
humor. Thank you. We needed the humor in there. I appreciate
In the
that.
bedroom is when you are allowing yourself to cycle naturally through all of your levels of consciousness. So they just come in and take advantage of those levels of consciousness that you are cycling through.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Razor, I love that. That made me smile. Okay. There could be some kinky ETs out there. Of course, we have this hybridization program, but usually it doesn't work that way.
There are kinky ETs. They're not kinky. They're busy collecting sperm and
Well, speaking about sperm, somebody asked earlier, and I meant to ask you. I didn't want to interrupt you. You were through a segment. But will I don't want to say the word. So will the unwilling people's sperm be worth more than gold, or words to that effect?
Yes.
Do you see that? Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. The answer is yes.
That's one of the things that they came as soon as the shot was being made public. They came and said, "Tell people don't do that. Tell people don't do that." And I said, "Why?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they said, "Because it will change your physiology."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "In what way?" And he held out his arms and said, look at me. And, you know, little scrawny body, no muscle, no nothing. It's like, oh, is that what we're headed for?
Yeah. And that's why these wonderful young ladies in Australia are looking for they're putting up their sign there. Anyways, Jim Willie and I were talking about that in last December's report. And this is coming a theme. And there's dating websites now and all this stuff. There's websites for unpolluted or anyways for workers and all of these things.
Really?
So,
I did not know that.
That already started. So yeah, very interesting indeed. And of course, like, let's talk about that, the relationship part. Of course, I'm joking about this. Some people are angry when I brought this up, but I mean, no, it's serious. We need to talk about this, and it's in a cute way, but they're being unabashedly honest about what they're looking for. And many humans are caught in this position right now. Where do we go? Where do we do? How do we trust our partnerships and our relationships? And that's causing also a big divide on the home front, in the relationship front. Can you talk about maybe was there anything in the robes also that spoke about this time that we're in now, and maybe some of the tips, tools, strategies that humans can use to try to bridge that divide that's been created here over the last 2 years? Can we end on that note and try to empower?
They didn't say a whole lot about that. However, they showed me that everybody was fighting, everybody over everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Ideas, food, government stuff, Republican, Democrat, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I just watched that for a bit. I didn't really know what to say, if anything. But there was this sense of tragedy. And I made a comment to them about that. That just looks really tragic. And their comment was, "You will learn to stand on your own." And I thought, okay, not sure. I think I already am doing that. Of course, I wasn't. But but I think each one of us, we have to move past all of the social do's and don'ts that have, taken over our lives. I was thinking back the other day when I was a girl, we went to church. We had to wear a hat. I had always wore a dress. My best shoes. I had to wear white gloves. Carried a little missile. All that was part of the. If you didn't do that, then you were going to hell. It was just part of the culture that I was raised in. And it didn't matter that I was going to the Catholic Church. Those people that were going to the Methodist Church and the Episcopalian Church and the Congregational Church and the Jewish synagogue, they were all doing the same thing. It was a Sunday tradition. So we have a whole bunch of social traditions that are being wiped out, and we just really need to stand on our own and say, okay, what kind of traditions do I treasure? And what do I want to reestablish or keep in my own life? And go from there.
Yeah, man, and standing on your own means taking a lot of responsibility, and I
It
think
does.
this is where, again, this is how and why I created this channel. It was to have these conversations and to bring
Yeah.
very juxtaposed views into focus so that we can hold different pieces and evaluate them and
Yep.
decide for ourselves how we want to move forward. And I think the more information we have, even though sometimes it's difficult to hear, the better we're off. And I probably should have gave this warning at the beginning of the show. I usually do with you when you're on the show, Penny, but there's a lot more. I'm up to 60,000 subscribers, so there's a lot of new people here who might not have seen you before. And so maybe let me take this opportunity here to say also, listen, I love you guys, everyone in the chat, and
Yeah.
I understand that sometimes I bring guests that have different points of views than other guests, and that's
Right.
by design. And it's not because I'm endorsing one or not endorsing the other or vice versa. I'm trying to gather information, and I'm trying to make heads or tails out of this huge deception that we all are living in. And that means having these conversations. One. Number two, the second warning would be, don't fall prey to some of those in the spiritual world right now where they're saying to you, hey, if you listen to something and you don't feel good about it, it must be negative, therefore don't listen to it, or words to that effect. That is a pitfall. Because sometimes hearing something that is not good or that scares you doesn't mean it's negative. It just means that it's not aligned right now with who you are and your perceptions of thought, and it's creating a cognitive dissonance. That's an opportunity to learn and to grow. And if you throw that out every time you have something that placates your worldview or your neuro-linguistic map, you are cheating yourself of the ability to grow and expand your consciousness. So that is a point I think I should have made at the beginning of the show. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit also from your point of view, Penny, on why that's very critical and important for humans to go through and to empower themselves and practice this skill right now in 2020?
Yeah, I think the main thing is to understand that if you want to be a wise person, if you want wisdom so that you make good choices and good relationships and set up and participate in good systems and institutions, then you need wisdom. And in order to have wisdom, you really have to be able to listen to all the points of view and pick what's good and right for you from each one of those. If you don't do that, not only does your consciousness stay really contracted, you really become sort of flat-sided. You're not well-rounded. And that's really a necessary condition for wisdom, is to be able to listen to it all and understand what works, what doesn't work, to be able to hold some things that maybe contradict what you would like to believe. Just you hold those to see, well, does that happen? Where does that go? And hold it. I'm not talking about holding it for 10 minutes until you can get out of the conversation. I'm talking about holding it for years. So when we started into this, was it 2017? October 2017, when Trump was elected, we started into this whole thing. Yay, Trump, yes. And oh my God, I was so loved Trump. When he first came on, it was like, oh my God, he's doing it. And then things started to really get kind of squirrely. And that was just like painful. I did not want to look at that or even admit that that was a possibility, that I had been fooled again by another politician or whatever you want to call him. And so that was very difficult. And that you hold that paradox. And I knew from the time he came in that we had at least a 10-year sequence of events, or a 10-year period that would be very difficult. And we're in it. We're in it now. We're right in the middle.
And you said something about, if you expand there, you become a better person for it, and you can maybe see your path before you better and avoid those pitfalls. But the reverse of that is, if you don't, then you fall trapped to the system who's continuously trying to dupe you and
Right.
manipulate you. And this is the matrix that we're in.
Yeah.
We are being controlled and manipulated at every level, even levels we don't even see yet or
That's right.
understand because of this technology. So the more we empower ourselves, the more we can limit the opportunities of this matrix of control to control
Yes.
us. So again, just that in of itself is good to be able to have these conversations. And you know, Penny and I do a good job at doing the devil's advocate sometimes and bringing things forward for your point of view. But the point here is to go through this experience and this training of opening up a field in your mind where you can place a data set that doesn't match with anything else, and you can evaluate it without having to change your complete worldview until such time as it makes sense for you to change your worldview. And that's the thing there. And that's what Penny was saying. You just don't hold it for 10 minutes for a conversation. You hold it for quite some time. And some pieces stay in that radar for a long time. And some things maybe a month later will say, no, I understand this is no good. You can put it in the trash, right? And then you put new stuff in. But some other things, you have to stay there a long time until you figure out where it fits. And that's the uncomfortable part for humans, but we need to practice that.
Really that is so true.
Well, okay. Amen. I'm done preaching for tonight. Penny, what's going on at pennykelly.com? Of course, you have your newsletter here, folks.
Yeah.
Go to the bottom of the screen there and fill out that newsletter form. Any new books? Okay, I'm going to ask you again. I know you're late. I know you're super busy with the courses. Where's that last book coming up? Can you give maybe an update for the audience as well?
I started writing some things that for a little booklet that I was calling The Revival. And I thought it'd be maybe 18 or so pages. Well, I think now we're somewhere in the neighborhood of, 52 pages, 8.5 by 11, single space. And I haven't typeset that yet. So that's going to translate to about 75 to 80 pages. And I'm not done. And I'm realizing, this was supposed to be a 4-part series. And then I moved it to a 6-part series on Patreon. And now I'm like, I'm not done. And it's going to be a book. And I'm just like, well, okay, finish writing a darn book. So that's coming. And I am going to break it down into, it's probably going to be at least a 4, if not a 6-part series.
Wow.
And it's pretty hard hitting. You know, if you don't want your world shaken up, you probably won't want to read it. But, you know, that's
probably the reason why you want to read it.
Well, it's about our history. It is about our history.
Yeah.
Nice. And what's happening with that nowadays. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. So that's very happening. Good. I am teaching. The classes are full. We have expanded the classes too.
I hear there's still like a waiting list of 300-400 people for the classes. So,
right.
Okay. So the people who might want to try to maybe dip their toes in some of this class materials, where can you point them at least here on Patreon so they can get started here on this higher consciousness learning?
I think probably on Patreon, if you just go to the high beta one, you'll get we talk a lot about consciousness, expanding consciousness, what is real spirituality, because there's a lot of gobbledygook out there. So you can start. You can also read my books. Those all get you thinking. Mm-hmm. Those come from my website, or you can go to Amazon and get a physical book. My website just has ebooks. Mm-hmm. And that's, let's see, is there anything else?
Wait a second. The robes, wasn't that not in print?
The robes is in print. Yeah, the robes is ebook and in print, available at Amazon.
Well, for people to start, I think, especially because they gave predictions of the times we're in now, is that still a good place to start here with the robes?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it starts out, you know, I tell people, read robes slowly. Mm-hmm. Because it starts out like, oh, and then you get into the part after everything has changed, how we're living and how things are, and it's like, oh wow, okay. So, this is a good thing.
Okay.
It's not hopeless, people. It's definitely not.
No. And don't take this conversation as hopeless. We're both echoing that, no, this is the greatest time in our history. We all, first of all, chose to be here for this.
Right.
And I echo one of the statements from a viewer earlier tonight. We will prevail. We're strong as humans, but we need to get together, and we will, absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe we will. But we do have some difficult times ahead of us, and we need to work through them and have these adult conversations. And Annette, thank you so much. She says, really enjoyed listening to this conversation tonight. First time, you see, first time viewer. Good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the point. And if you guys like this, and I know it could be controversial to some people to hear it, share this video with other people. Get them thinking, and they might hate me, they might hate Penny for it. That's okay. We're just having a conversation. Let's spread the information. At least get that catalyst for change, and that thinking process, and that critical thinking process, and that debate process, but more importantly, that ability to hold different thoughts in your mind until you can create a new worldview for yourself without all of these external distractions of control and manipulation that we currently live in this crazy matrix of ours. All right, folks, that was another Break in the Clouds with Penny Kelly. You can find her YouTube work here at Penny Kelly, 27,000 strong and growing. Congratulations, Penny. And also
thank you.
You can find her also here at pennykelly.com, where you can find her books and her classes. And if you want to get started in some of this course material, go to patreon.com/Penny Kelly. And there you're looking for the high beta program here right there on the screen, in the middle of the screen. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Penny, a big thank you to you again, and a big happy birthday to you, Penny. I absolutely love you and adore these conversations. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and do join us Friday night for the Wacky Woo with Jason 4. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic. I'll see you soon. I love you guys. Au revoir.
Bye-bye.